Hello. We just have to make it work, right?
Start fixing, and the more we fix, the more that will be done.
Yep, the more we fix, the more it'll be done. Alright, well, when I painted the steering column drop-down bracket that I built, I forgot to paint that piece and that piece. So, while we're waiting for paint to dry, check this out. So, where'd it go? Right there. So I got this 3/4 inch round cold roll that I need to use for an intermediate shaft in my steering linkage. So the steering column pokes out here. I'm gonna have to put a U-joint here, an intermediate shaft with a support, and then another shaft that comes down and ties into the rack and pinion. So the thing about that is though, let's see. So this is the 1-inch double D. It goes on the end of the steering column. It, on the other side, has a 3/4 inch weld-on U-joint. Okay? So, you got a weld on here. Then this is going to go on there. And then you're going to have this U-joint that I got from my buddy. It's a 3/4 inch weld-on by 3/4 inch double D. Okay? I don't have any double D 3/4 inch rod, so we're going to turn the end of this into 3/4 inch double D. I did it when I built my rat rod. It worked out pretty good. You just got to kind of take your time with the grinder and make sure you fit it perfectly. But I'm going to get cutting on the end of this to make it fit in that hole, and then we'll have one more piece of the puzzle ready to go when we get paint dried and put the steering column in. Alright, so we got the end of that squared off, rounded the edge so it won't have any burrs on it to fight us. So that's the weld on side of this joint. It fits on there good. P.S. My buddy that I got this from had used it to fab up something and had a little piece of 3/4 inch just tack welded in here. So I cut the tack weld, pulled it out, went on the little disc sander to clean that burr off. Come around, boom. Sander caught the edge of that little Allen screw that goes in there, unthreaded it, zipped it across the shop. I have no idea where it went. So now I gotta go back to the hardware store at some point to get a little Allen head screw that matches that for there. It's not one thing, it's another, I tell you what. So anyways, that fits on there. Now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of center this up on there. And I know that I need to cut just a little bit off each side to get that flat side. So I'm just gonna rough mark it. And it's not much. But basically, you've got to use your straightest eye you got to keep it centered, because you want your shaft, your thing to be centered on there. And then you just got to trim it a little bit at a time on each side and keep it even so that it's a nice snug fit, because you don't want it to be loose. So just take your time. It's not hard, but if you do this, it saves you a lot of money from having to buy the pieces of the double D 3/4 inch, because that stuff's not cheap. Hello. Okay, I wasn't happy with it, so we cut it off. It was just a little off-centered, so cut it off and we'll try to move it over just a little bit. Little bit at a time. Just like that. Okay, as you can see, nice and centered on there. I did cut a little bit deep on this side, but it's not really gonna matter. It's shouldered out here and it's all the way through the double D portion of the U-joint up here. So this end, this long end here on the 3/4 shaft will go down to the steering rack, and then I'll chop a piece that goes from weld in here to the double D on the column. And then that way you can fully assemble or disassemble the steering in order to undo it if you need to or whatnot. So that way there you don't have pieces welded together that you can't get into the shaft to put on a heim joint or whatever. So I went ahead and cut that shaft off. I know it's gonna be long, but anyways, just to show you. So that slides into there, and then it'll come up past this exhaust. So this U-joint will actually probably be over here on this side of the manifold where my thumb is, and then have a little short shaft that goes from there up to the column. Take a heim joint or something to come over and hook back to the frame to hold on this shaft so that it doesn't wobble around, but it'll hold it tight where it needs to be, away from the exhaust and the frame and everything. And then from there to the steering column, we'll just have a little piece there. So alright, well, I've been just kind of tinkering with figuring out push rods for brakes and shift linkage and all that stuff. I got some coats of paint on the rest of the steering column brackets, so I think I'm gonna call it time for a little bit. My grandpa that you guys seen in the garage door video is turning 90 years old tomorrow, and we're having a big bash for him. Got a bunch of family that came out that I haven't seen for a while. So I'm gonna head over there and say hello to those people and hang out with them for a little bit, maybe grab some lunch, and probably be out later tonight. Keep tinkering on this stuff. Gotta just keep plugging away, finding stuff to do. So there's plenty to get done. Alright guys, it's another day out here. We're still hitting the grind. I got some emails saying that we're going to be short some parts, and still haven't seen some stuff that's supposed to be coming. So, but I'm not going to let it slow me down. I'm going to keep going. Even if we don't get it ready for the show, I want to finish this thing ASAP. We are still going to be at Ratfink, so look for us there if you can make it. But we might not have this. We might just have my rat rod truck. So anyways, got the steering drop down bracket made and painted. Haven't bolted it in solid yet, but it's ready to be bolted in. So really we're still just focusing on this conundrum of steering, brakes, exhaust, fun stuff. So that's like the main area of concern for me right now. So I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I completely forgot about a steering wheel. So got to figure that out. All right, that's at least in there holding it in place till we get the rest of the linkage hooked up and get a lower mount for it. I just have it hanging on some tie wire right now, so we'll just keep that in its spot. Uh-oh. We're gonna have to slide our steering up into the cab a little higher. First I was afraid that I got too short of a steering column, but now it looks like it's probably gonna be just right. Alright, so this end is just barely onto there. I need to pull it off and kind of just polish this end up a little bit till I can get that to slide on and off, because it is stinking tight right now. So anyways, we'll get that off and clean that up to where we can get this U-joint to slip on and off of there and hopefully make our lives a little bit easier. Alright, well, it's stuff like that that costs you hours and hours of time. 1-inch double D on the end of the steering column, 1-inch double D on the U-joint, but they did not want to go together, so I ended up just having to take some sandpaper and the buffing wheel and just massage it down to where it would slide together. It's still snug. I had to tap it together with a hammer, but man, if I would have tried to force it on the way it was before, it would have never come off. So anyways, I got the steering column kind of in position. We'll go ahead and tighten it up how it needs to be, and then we can work on the rest of our steering shaft. Alright, so we got our U-joint here. I'm gonna have to come out and around the exhaust with another U-joint here, and then angle down into this one. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it here. Probably gonna be something like that. Alright, I think we're gonna cut this rod off about there, see how that fits, and then measure for our little short shaft in between the two and get that done. Alright, we got our piece cut. We're gonna slide it into this U-joint down here, kind of hold it where it needs to go and eyeball that, and looks like we should be getting around everything there. So now we just need to get a measurement for this joint or this piece here and cut a piece for it, and we'll have to go through and weld it all together. This is the piece that we just cut off that other one. Let's measure it and see what we're at. 4 and what? 1, 2, 3/8. So just gotta trim that down a little bit and we'll have it. Alright, we got the piece cut. We got it fitted in there, and it looks like it's gonna fit good, so I'm just gonna tack these joints where this just slides in there. Just gotta make sure your U-joints are timed with each other so you don't create any binding issues. And then once I get it tacked all together, we'll pull it out and weld all the way around these welding ones, and then bolt it back in. We're gonna have to build a stabilizer for this longer joint right here, kind of where my hand's holding this, where it needs to be. So once we get this put together, it'll slide in over this one that we made the double D 3/4 inch on the rod. So that heim joint will slide over that and through where it needs to go. So we'll tack in these U-joints. This one here, I've got to pull off the splines of the steering rack so that we can time that U-joint with this one up here, and then we can weld it in too. So alrighty, so I got this lower bar kind of situated where it needs to be, welded it onto that heim or the steering joint, and got it tightened down there. So that's down there to stay. Now I slid my heim joint over here. I'm just gonna have to build a little L bracket that bolts to the top of this frame rail for that heim joint to come through to stabilize this steering. But I don't know right where I'm gonna have to make it or have this situated till I get this all hooked back together. So I'm gonna take, while this is free, I'm gonna take the time to weld these U-joints in so that I don't have to worry about them again. Then I can slide this together, build my little bracket, bolt it on, steering's done. One more thing checked off the list. Alright, got it set up in there, adjusted, just trying to figure out how I'm going to do a bracket here. Keep that heim joint centered in its kind of rotation and that. So it's going to just have to kind of be like right there. Alright, so instead of bolting to the side of the frame, I'm going to bend this piece 90 degrees and make it bolt to the top of the frame. So we'll just keep using this piece, but I just got to bend it over so that we can bolt it to the top of the frame instead of vertical alongside the frame. Now I'll probably round these corners a little bit. You got a bracket. I guess we got to drill some holes in there too. Alright, I drilled the first hole in there for this bracket. So I'll go and drop the bolt in there, line it up, and then we'll know right where to drill the second one. Alright, somewhere right there. That should be marked good enough. I'll pull this bracket off, give it a little quick spray with some black paint while we're drilling holes and finishing up a couple other little things. And then it'll be ready to bolt on. Alright, got the steering done. The only thing left to do on steering is power steering hoses and a lower mount for the steering column and a steering wheel. And the steering is functional. So, alright, so I'm working on designing the push rod for the brakes. So I bought a longer threaded thing that will fit into this yoke. It had a hex head on the top of it, so I cut it off, and I have this pipe that I'm going to use as an extended push rod. So this slides right into that pipe. I'm going to drill or cut a hole or a notch in this pipe so that I can slide this in there, weld some, and weld it all the way around so that we know that that's going to be in there sturdy. And then I've got a nut, one of those coupler nuts that's longer, that I'm going to weld to this side. So this side will hook to the vacuum booster, and this side will hook to the pedal, and it will be extended. Alright, I pulled the pedal back out. I got to get this old rusty pin out of here so that we can use the new one that we can make adjustable. And then we'll get it put in and start trying to figure out where we're going to locate everything.
We're gonna put the brake pedal in.
That one go in?
I think so.
No. Now that we've got this linkage end in here that we're going to use to build our push rod, we can start measuring for parts. So I'm just going to take this spring and hook it in down here. It's just an old brake spring that I had laying around, just to kind of hold the brake pedal in the position that we want it to, and then that way we can try to make everything work. Alright, so I'm wanting to kind of mount this brake master down here. But it's gonna be tricky. I don't know. This is just, if I can mount it here, it gives me space for exhaust and all that other stuff. So I think it'll work down here, but it's gonna be tricky building the brackets and everything to make it
Daddy, I
fit.
said it's gonna work.
We just have to make it work, right?
Start fixing, and the more we fix, the more that will be done.
Yeah, the more we fix, the more it'll be done. Alright, so the fitment and placement of this is going to rely heavily upon our power steering lines and our power steering pump. Things that I didn't think about. So, I'm probably going to have to head uptown, see if I can get some hoses made so I can get the power steering in, so that I know where this can fit. So, pieces to the puzzle. So, anyways, that's going to be the plan of action. Run uptown, see if I can figure out what fittings those are, what I need, and then get some hoses made. Alright, so I just found out that I'm not going to be able to get a power steering hose for quite a while. So, I'm going to do something that's going to make me happy and cheer me up. I'm going to make a radiator fit inside this grill shell. I got to trim this little bracket off here. And then from the looks of it, the radiator should fit right in here. And we can just reuse these studs, these threaded studs that are already on here. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to chop this off, and we'll grab that radiator out of the box and set it in there. Pretty exciting. Huh. So we got this hole right here that's lining up. So I'm going to drop a bolt through there and through the hole on the other side. They look like they're the right spacing and everything, just to drop a bolt in. Okay. Alright, so I just dropped some bolts through those holes that were already lining up. I'm going to take my little mallet here. I'm just going to hold this radiator about spaced evenly off each side of that shell. Stud's about right there, so just give that a little whack there. Same thing over here. you go. Alright, the radiator fits. That's good. It'll bolt right in. You got a few bolts there that line up, so we'll be able to use that and stuff. I got to look at these studs here that I screwed to. They actually bolt this shell to the fronts of the fenders. So I've got to put this on, or fenders on, this on, and then put the radiator in. So we'll figure it out and make it work, I know that much. Anyways, we'll keep making progress.